The long-awaited Pascal Siakam deal finally seems to be set now. The Toronto Raptors and Indiana Pacers are finalizing a deal that will send Siakam to Indy in return for Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, and 3 first-round picks. The Pelicans also have a hand in this pot as they are sending Kira Lewis Jr. to Toronto for kind of what seems to be maybe some salary relief, and I'm just wondering what your initial thoughts are on this trade.
Yeah, the second big trade that we've gotten already, and we're still about 3 weeks away from the trade deadline. And both of them have, of course, involved the Toronto Raptors. The first of which being, they traded OG Anunoby to the Knicks, got Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett and a second-round draft pick out of that. And now they traded Pascal Siakam, a main centerpiece of their team for quite a long time now, and they got quite the haul here. 3 first-round draft picks is a lot to get for an expiring contract like Siakam, and I really do like the fit of him going to Indiana and what they can all do with that young core they're putting together here. Beginning though with what the Toronto Raptors got, how I mentioned, I like the return package for them. They've definitely got a lot in return for 2 of their main players, and they're finally committing to a full rebuild. I like what they're doing. They've gotten a big return package so far, and it could be even more if they trade away Bruce Brown Jr., which I imagine that they will. But now getting into, the main part of the deal with, of course, Siakam going to Indiana. I like the core they put together here. I like the fit. And, between Tyrese Halliburton, Siakam, Miles Turner, they got a really good 3-headed monster there in their starting lineup. And, I think Siakam really could be the piece that they're looking for. They didn't have a reliable go-to scoring wing option. They will, and of course, definitely will continue to run a lot of their offense through Tyrese Halliburton, but now they won't have to rely on him so heavily. Siakam, he is a proven guy, whether it be scoring, playmaking, coming up in the clutch. He's seen it all, done it all. And I think a really big part of this to them will be the playoff experience that Siakam will bring. And, again, they're young. You can't really expect them to have that much yet, but that's kind of the main part of this, I think, for me, between the fit and the experience that he'll bring to their team.
No, I agree 100%. To me, it's definitely, when I read, the 3 first-round picks, it's risky, right? Mm-hmm. But there's really, Indiana's in a really good place to play it risky, right? I think we all kind of knew that they were going to chase after some veteran talent, but, kind of with the emergence as, in my opinion, Tyrese Halliburton being a legitimate MVP candidate, I think that they kind of, could shift to more of an aggressive approach, And like you said, Indiana, they always, they make the playoffs quite often, really. They lose out in the first round, but just bringing in Siakam with all that experience that he has, that's going to be huge for the Pacers. And honestly, it's not just all offense either. I think that Siakam's going to provide that defense that the Pacers desperately needed, in my opinion. Can basically play 1 to 4, even 1 to 5 extremely well. So I guess my opinion is that I think that, it's a really good look for them. And I think it's risky, but I think it's pretty much worth it for them.
Yeah, and in talking about that risk here, I think the main part of that is the contract of Siakam. I referred to him, being an expiring contract, and in order to retain him, re-sign him, it will take giving him a maximum contract that, he's not even guaranteed to sign with them. He will be an unrestricted free agent, meaning that he can go wherever he wants to. Everything will really depend on not only how the fit is, but how comfortable he is within his role, how much he likes even living in Indiana. All of that will heavily depend on them being able to retain him. I imagine, he will like it. They're a young core that he can not only grow with, but kind of hand the reins off to Halliburton and not be so relied on all the time. And, again, it's a really good fit, but there definitely is a big risk here. Though I think, for what they gave up, they were able to retain a lot too. Indiana got to keep both Buddy Hield and Benedict Mathurin, both of which the Raptors reportedly did want right away and even demanded at one time. So I think that's really big for them. They did have to give up Bruce Brown Jr., but, I don't think he was such a huge need for them as much compared to where he kind of was in Denver. He fit well, but I think he's replaceable in their system. And, obviously Siakam is definitely an upgrade over him. And, they really did need to get bigger on the wing. They've kind of been playing a mix of Buddy Hield, Bruce Brown Jr., and Aaron Naismith at small forward, and that's pretty tiny even for the modern NBA. Siakam, is of course more of a power forward, but in general, he makes their lineup a little bit bigger, a lot longer, and a lot more versatile too in general. And again, I like the fit. He won't be on the ball as much, with Halliburton being pretty ball dominant and, running the show for them and doing it quite well, them being the number 1 offensive rated team for a large majority of the season so far. But I think Siakam will add a completely different dynamic to their team. They did not, again, have a really go-to scoring option on the wing. Maybe Benedict Mathurin can become that for them eventually, but at the moment, Siakam is far and away the more proven option, currently averaging about 22 points per game on 52.2% shooting from the field, and while kind of already being a second option behind Scotty Barnes, who Toronto at this point had been prioritizing more than Siakam. So Siakam, he definitely can play that second fiddle, 1B to 1A kind of role, not only now, but he has experience doing it on a very good team back in, 2018, 2019, when he did that behind kind of a mix of Kawhi Leonard and Kyle Lowry. So he definitely can fill that role, and not just on a good team, but on a great team too. That team won an NBA championship back in the day, and, even though he might have a little bit more of an ego, maybe if you'd call it that, wants to take more on the offense now, he can definitely revert back to that, and he's not a problem player by any means. I don't think he'll let his ego get in the way of being a second option, even third option at times. He'll fill whatever role that they ask him to, and I like the fit there and everything he'll be able to provide them on offense.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with all that. And I think Siakam's one of those players that can just play really well off the ball, especially with Tyrese Haliburton on your team making plays for you. And I can just see his efficiency going up even further now. And, Indiana sitting at, 23-17 right now, sitting at the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion, well positioned now to make, with this great addition, a significant leap in not only the standings, but just even come postseason. So that's kind of where I want to go now is what are your thoughts on, what this team can do postseason?
Yeah, like I referred to before, in terms of that, adding Siakam is a really big addition for them. And if they hope to go far, they needed more guys like that on their team. They had Bruce Brown again, but, he's not a main factor of a team. He definitely probably helped them mature a little bit and would have helped them come playoff time, but Siakam is that and then much, much more. You mentioned they're currently 6th in the East right now. With how good of a team and how young and, exciting and energetic they are, they could definitely go even further. They could climb to maybe all the way up to 4 or 5, and even, if they get number even 3, 4, they could have a home playoff round in round 1. And, at that point, they could become a favorite in a series. And if they put it all together between now and then, 2-3 months isn't a lot of time. But with kind of how seamless the fit is there, I think they could do it pretty quickly and, build a well-coordinated group, especially on offense. I think he'll fit right in there and, really do well come playoff time. It'll be difficult for them, first time jitters for a lot of them, of course, but, he'll add a whole different dynamic to their team and a lot more experience. I think they'll help take them further.
Yeah, and an interesting thing too, just looking at the Eastern Conference right now, is it's pretty tight this year. Obviously Boston's kind of sitting pretty up there. Milwaukee's not too far behind, but, from Philly in 3rd all the way down to Orlando in 8th, I mean, that's only a 4-game back difference right there in terms of wins. So, I mean, it's definitely tight. A lot can shift, and a big trade like this can obviously shift the entire conference in favor of Indiana if they can, obviously, like you say, mesh and gel. So obviously it's all going to come down to that. And I think that these next, I don't want to say 4 months, probably 4 or 5 months here are going to be really important for just seeing seeing if this risk kind of pays off with getting Siakam and seeing if they, if everything goes well and they can re-sign him, moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. That will, of course, be the biggest priority here. They want to make it far in the playoffs, if they even get there, which I imagine they will, but retaining Siakam will be the number 1 priority for them. They got to make him feel welcome. They got to, ease him in, even, let him do whatever he really wants to do within their offense in a way to, give him freedom, not limit him too much, but they got to find a happy medium between making him fit within their heavily run offense by Tyrese Haliburton, but also give him the ball and, not make him an off-ball player too much. He can fill that role, but he's not a great off-ball player, not the best three-point shooter at only about 33% on his career and 31.7% right now, but he can fill that role being an off-ball cutter and then being a good corner three-point shooter, 47.5% right now and 37% on his career. But again, they do have to give him the ball and, use him in the way that Toronto historically has, which has done really well for him. Using him that way, he can be a all-NBA caliber player, and of course, if they can get him back to that level, that would make him feel very comfortable in Indiana and, of course, make him a part of their future too. Overall though, I like the fit, and Indiana is clearly taking the next step with their rebuild and their young core, and they appear fully ready to make some noise come playoff time.